Hey guys, it's Rui. Welcome back. And for those that are new here, let me give a little introduction to myself and why I decided to chase the indie game dev dream as a noob. So I started learning game dev 3 months ago, just on my own, and I've made 2 practice projects so far, very small mini games to teach me very basic things like being able to move a character around. And just within those 3 months, I felt like making games finally started to bring back the spark for creating and for life that I had lost to my corporate tech job, which I left a while back, and recently, as a result, led to me moving back in with my parents. This is not where I want to be in life, and I'm not exactly proud of it. But at the same time, I'm grateful that my parents are willing to let their grown-ass daughter stay with them for a while, and that this gives me a little bit of time and space to take a risk and work towards a goal that I actually care about, which is to create something that I think is cool and that other people think is cool too, and hopefully are willing to pay money for it. This is something that I couldn't work towards while working my corporate job. Some people can, but I'm just not built like that. So since I'm able to, for now, I'll see how far I can get with what I've got, which is just my laptop, some open source software, the help of the tutorial gods, and not much money. And although I'm kind of delusional, I'm not delusional enough to think that my first game release will be a massive success, or even a success at all. But I also do know that the only way for me to eventually make a successful release is to start by making a release and improving from there. So I will put my heart into this game that I'm about to make, but I'll also be keeping my expectations low, and I will be sharing that whole process of making my first game with y'all. Now, the reason why I'm documenting all of this for YouTube, even though I'm just a beginner and I don't have much useful knowledge to share that is not already out there, is for 2 big reasons. One, it's my way of putting myself out there into the game dev community. At first, I felt pretty embarrassed sharing the behind the scenes of me making my practice games, because I knew that there's a chance of experienced game devs watching my video and probably cringing at all the faux pas and mistakes that I'm making. But I'm so glad that I uploaded anyways, because yes, it has reached experienced game devs, people that are way more knowledgeable than me, but they've actually been so overwhelmingly kind. I really appreciate that so many of y'all are so passionate about what you know and are so generous with sharing your wealth of knowledge to mere fledglings like me. So thank you for that, and for sharing your advice in such a respectful way. I was expecting far more people to be like, "You're doing it wrong, loser." But no, I have such a positive first impression of the game dev community, especially indie game devs and solo game devs, because of y'all in the comments. So thank you. And the second reason why I'm sharing my very unglamorous journey of starting from the bottom is because I want for people who watch this to feel like they can start too. And I'm not specifically talking about releasing a game or game dev at all. I'm talking about starting to learn anything that seems kind of insurmountable now. Because personally for me, of course I feel inspired seeing people do very impressive things, but I also find a lot of inspiration from seeing people who are kind of bad at stuff do it anyway and slowly get better at it. It makes me feel like maybe I can do the stuff that I'm bad at too. So I am hoping that little old me might be able to inspire somebody out there too. And with that, I present to you my questionable beginnings of making my first real game. Day 1 basically just consisted of me hyping myself up to work on this new project by reorganizing and decorating my room. Back in school, I was always that kid that's gotta decorate all their notebooks before the new school year starts. I decided to put up some old drawings that I drew when I was a kid because, in a way, I feel like people who make games, they have to be very connected with their whimsical inner child. And so I thought maybe having my old childhood works here for inspiration will help me connect with that side of me as I make my game. This one is a drawing of my Neopet that I drew when I was like 10 or 11. She was a Kachik. This was like my dream outfit for her that I wanted to buy, but I would never get because it costs real money. I made this drawing to submit it to the Neopets website. If your fan art gets featured, then they give you like extra Neo points or something. But I never finished the drawing. It ended up being too ambitious for me. So hopefully I've gotten better at scoping my creative projects by now, and I won't have the same problem for the game that I'm about to make, surely. That night, I decided on an official concept for my game, which is that it'll be a food cart management game. Specifically a food cart that sells Korean street food. This was a concept that I made a sketch for quite a few months ago and was actually the inspiration for my first ever practice game. Restaurant management is one of my favorite genres of games that I like to play, and so I decided that I'd feel comfortable with my first game release being of this genre. It was pretty hard to decide on a concept when the sky is the limit. I want to make something that is unique in some way, but in the end, to stay focused, I had to tell myself that in order to think outside the box, first I need to define the box. I also set up a Notion page to keep track of stuff for my game development. I've used Trello in the past for task management, but I decided to try doing it within Notion this time just because the colors looked pretty. At first I was trying to outline a roadmap for my game development, but then I realized I have no sense of how long things might take me and how to timeline things as of now. So for now I decided to just take things week by week. And hopefully by the end of this month, I'll be able to have a better idea of what my long-term roadmap might look like. So I finally set up my first couple of tasks for development, and here they are. I want to start off by setting up a very bare bones food cart. And what I mean by that is literally just have a food cart, aka a box, and one single menu item that I can serve to a customer. And along with that, I want to create a customer entity of sorts where I can adjust certain properties about the specific customer, such as conversion, which is how I'm describing the likelihood that a customer will actually come up to the food cart and place an order, as well as patience, which is how long they're willing to wait for you to finish making their order. This is my first time programming such a dynamic NPC and having multiple NPCs that spawn throughout a game. The customer is a very key NPC in my game, so I wanted for this to be one of the first things that I set up. I don't remember how to do anything. I've never built pathing for an NPC before, so I did a quick search on YouTube, found this tutorial. There is a section right here for creating an NPC, which is perfect, so I'll give this a watch. I'm watching another tutorial. This one uses a different method. Instead of nav agents and nav regions, it uses path 3D. It seems simpler, and simple might do the trick for my situation. I'm not creating any crazy physics-based game, so I might start with this method first. Sweet. I've set it up pretty messy for now, but I'm just glad to have something working. This was my first time using paths. It was a bit of a learning curve for me. Today I'm going to continue building out the customer NPC. To be honest, I was feeling a bit overwhelmed yesterday because there's a lot to figure out for just one customer, but this is my first time having multiple NPCs that are all constantly spawning and despawning in a game. It did help out a lot for me to sketch out a little bit, very rudimentary sketches of what things might look like once there are multiple customers. But I also think that I'm kind of overcooking too early right now and kind of getting ahead of myself. So I want to go back to focusing on fleshing out the mechanics for a single customer for now. What I have already learned about solo development in my first 2 days of doing it so far is that it's both challenging in a fun way and challenging in an overwhelming way. And there's a fine line between the two. So I feel like one of the big challenges will be in trying to make sure that whenever I'm working on something, I'm not biting off more than I can chew. As I'm building my game, I'm also building out my process for making the game. Especially for this first month, I'm trying to really baby myself and ease into this process because it's a lot. I just paused working on the customer NPC for a little bit just to put together basic functionality for handling serving food from the food cart. So I have some boxes for now to model that behavior of, for example, grabbing a bowl full of soup out of a main pot. And now I'm going back to working on the customer NPC. I also want to build out a very bare bones version of the conversion mechanic for the customers. I want there to be a chance that they look at the cart from afar, see the menu, and decide that actually I don't want to order here and just go along their way. And when I build that out, I'll have to update how I'm doing pathing for the customers once again. Wow. Now I just need to serve them the food. Come on. Yes. Yay. Oh. Oh, that was a bone crack. I'm so happy that it's working. I just finished very roughly sketching out just the main screens that I can think of for my game so far. It took me quite a bit. I think I spent like a couple hours, which is hard to believe considering how low fidelity the sketches are. But it's because it's just very different having an idea in your head versus actually putting it down on paper or iPad. Once I start drawing things out, that's when I'm touching upon certain details about the game that I haven't even really thought about yet. I haven't gotten to working on the more detailed concept art that I wanted to make for my game. I also didn't get to setting up Git. But honestly, I'm feeling pretty at capacity for today. It was kind of a long day for me outside of all this game dev stuff. And also I feel like the previous 2 days I worked a little longer than I would have liked to. So I think today's gonna be a half rest day. I feel pretty good having gotten the sketches and flowchart done. I think it'll be very useful going forward. It's time to learn Git. Oh, I really don't want to. My present self really doesn't want to, but my future self will thank me for it. Holy shit. I just spent 30 minutes making a GitHub account. If any of y'all can't get past the CAPTCHA because GitHub is convinced that you're a bot, sign in with Google, Gmail. That's how I finally did it. So apparently there is a desktop app, which I didn't know existed. I've been using Terminal all this time very poorly. So I'm very happy to learn that there's an app because I like being able to avoid using Terminal. Initial files? Sure. What now? What's the difference between committing and pushing? Do I have to push? Okay, so I guess I'll push. Okay, I think it did something.
So I'm gonna break down Git. I'm gonna teach you like you are a child.
Thank you, brother. Honestly, after watching this tutorial, I'm wondering if I should just suck it up and use Terminal. Because something I am worried about is it's just way too easy to click a button in the desktop app. I'm worried that I'll like click a button and accidentally override shit and then not know how to revert that. Okay, let's test things out. It took me 2 hours to get a basic understanding of Git and set up everything. I'm gonna go take a walk. Don't even act like it's not clear obscure. Yep. This was the night of the Game Awards 2025, and also my first year being able to catch it live. I couldn't miss out, so I decided to watch while I drew some concept art for my game. Chills. Oh my god, this is awesome. It was awesome seeing an indie team absolutely sweep the awards this year. The team behind Clair Obscur has such an inspiring backstory. A lot of the key people that made this amazing game were doing what they did for this game for the first time ever. I love that in their award speech they shouted out the tutorial people out there and mentioned that they had to watch tutorials to learn how to make games because they never made something like this before. It seems like indie games just continue to dominate more and more, and I love to see it. So I have 2 initial tiers that I sketched out, and I colored in the first one. I think it's pretty cute. And for the higher tier cart, even though it's like an upgraded version of the previous smaller cart, I didn't want it to be too sleek and polished. I wanted to keep the design pretty cozy and lived in. One of the challenges for me while drawing the concept art is that I was trying my best to keep the art pretty simple so that it's not too far off from what I end up actually making in Blender and putting into the game. Because I need to keep my assets from being too complex since I'll be making a lot of them for this game. She's been visiting my room more often after I move my furniture around. Maybe the feng shui is better. All right, today's plan is pretty simple, more concept art. Specifically today, I want to take some time to draw out my ideas for a couple of the most major pages in my game. One being the main gameplay scene where you're operating your food cart and serving to your customers, and the other being my most major menu screen in my game. It'll be kind of the crossroads of my game where you can choose to either go and edit and customize your cart, or you can jump right into starting the next day, or you can go into the shop and buy some upgrades for your cart. Not only that, but this is the screen where I plan on zooming out a little bit and showing more of the background environment and setting. I think that that'll be important since one of my big ideas for my game is for the food cart to be able to move from location to location. So I want to show that visually with a change of environment. While I'm working on the concept art, I also want to continue watching gameplay for this game called Tiny Bookshop. I do frequently watch gameplay videos, and so I stumbled upon this one, and I'm very glad that I did because this game has a lot of overlap with the game that I'm making. It is a bookshop management game, and my game that I'm making is also a management game, but the biggest overlap is that this is a mobile bookshop. It moves from location to location. And along with that, it also has that dynamic of customer conversion. You learn about the locals' tastes and try to cater your books toward your audience. This game has a lot more content, especially a lot of narrative content, which I will not be having in my game, simply because it's not my personal cup of tea. I'm not like super into building relationships and learning about characters and lore and stuff like that. All I care about in my game is being able to run my food cart like a well-oiled machine. I also just don't think it's realistic for me on my own to be able to make as much game content as the team did for Tiny Bookshop. I like that they have seasons and events in this game. That's something that I'm interested in for my own game, but I do wonder if that'll require me producing more content than I realistically can without it taking me far longer than I'm willing to take. I'm not very good at drawing environments, so I did what I can. And honestly, I'm just gonna skip drawing the main menu scene because I feel like with what I've drawn, plus my super sketchy wireframes that I drew earlier, I feel like that gives me enough of a visualization of what that would roughly look like. While I was drawing, I was thinking about my game as a whole, something that I'm worrying about. And honestly, the number one thing that I think you should be worrying about when you're starting a project is scope. If there's anything I learned from working at tech startups, is that scoping is everything. So I want to go back to what I had written down earlier this week, and given my reflections and thoughts throughout the week, I want to really prioritize what parts of the game I think are the most compelling, therefore I want to commit most of my time and effort towards, and what parts of the game are kind of more nice to have and that I can cut out of the scope. Because anything that I can cut, I will cut. I'm not trying to spend my whole life making this game. I want to make sure that all the parts of the game interplay with one another smoothly, and that's kind of hard to do when you have too many parts. For example, here one of my early ideas was that there will be like a morning rush, afternoon rush, evening rush. I'm thinking of just cutting that concept entirely. The day in itself will be one big rush. I am also considering cutting this whole conversion idea that I had in the beginning, and that's because of a reflection that I had while watching the Tiny Bookshop playthrough. In that game, there is a kind of similar dynamic. You can look at the customers and see when they choose to buy a book and when they choose not to buy a book. I think that a feature like that works well for a bit more of an idle game or a semi-idle game, like a more observational game. But I do want my game to be a bit more of a adrenaline rush kind of game, where you're just trying to fulfill orders and keep up the pace. So I'm gonna go ahead and just make a new diagram to explain my game. On day 7, I continued to take a step back and plan things out for my game, including a very rough outline of the phases for my game development, as well as sketching stuff out for the next few things I want to implement. And that brings us to the end of week 1. In my first week, I set up my workspace, sketched out some flows and concept art, learned Git, kind of, drew many diagrams in several notebooks, and even started development. Although this week has been pretty overwhelming, I already feel so fulfilled. Making my own video game has been always kind of a fantasy, a daydream for me for so long, so it feels surreal to me that I finally started. Anyways, thank you guys, as always, for watching. I'm so excited to continue to share my process of making my game with you guys. So make sure to let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Bye!